pick up at Colossians 1 through 11. Somebody start reading for me. Take me through 14, 11 through 14. Colossians 1, 11, take me through 14.
Strengthened with all might, according to his glorious power, unto all patience and long suffering with joyfulness, giving thanks unto the Father that made us meet to be partakers of the inheritance of the saints in light, who hath delivered us from the power of darkness, and hath translated us into the kingdom of his dear Son, in whom we have redemption through his blood, even the forgiveness of sins.
All right, talk to me about that.
Verse 11. Basically, with all his might, according to his glorious power, all patience and long suffering joy. So basically saying that, the Lord is my strength, and we have to be patient and endure through trials. And endure with joy. I would say it's not really being angry or not faithful. Basically, strength of the Almighty is the strength of the Lord, the strength of the Lord. The strength of the Lord supplies.
All right. And so Paul had spoken with them earlier. He said, I'm praying for you. I'm praying certain things going to happen. And then this goes on in the prayer that he's praying. And he said, I'm praying that you'll be strengthened with all might according to his glorious power unto all patience and long suffering with joyfulness. And so this is furthermore going into the prayer that Paul is saying that he's going to give on their behalf. And then 12 says, giving thanks unto the Father, which hath made us meet to be partakers of the inheritance of the saints in light. I'm really interested to see if somebody can dissect that piece right there for me. He said, I'm praying for you that you be strengthened with all might, according to his glorious power, unto all patience and long suffering with joyfulness. But then he says, giving thanks unto the Father, which hath made us meet to be partakers of the inheritance of the saints in light. Interesting.
In other words, we're going to share into the inheritance that God promised us as being part of the royal family.
Talk to him some more.
And as long as we live a righteous life. I mean, okay. to be able to be a part of that family, you must live a righteous life. And so you always need to give God thanks for allowing you to be a part of that.
Okay.
To receive that inheritance.
Okay, so you see, God actually allowed us to be a partakers of that inheritance, you're saying.
Through his grace. Through his grace.
It's definitely grace, because there's no way in the world that we could look at ourselves and think that we deserve to be partakers of anything that's divine. And so, yeah, definitely great. But the idea, and y'all remember last study now? I think Joanne pointed out last week a piece that he said he labeled the church as,
we're the saints.
He labeled the church as saints, and we went through this whole thing that we really have to look at ourselves the way that God looks at us, because we're quicker to call ourselves a sinner than we are a saint. But he refers to us as saints. He looks at us as the saints of God. And so in this right here, and he's saying he's made us partakers of the inheritance. The ones the saints that are in the light. I think that's what Carolyn was kind of alluding to when, she was saying, but we have to be in righteousness, to be able to benefit, from all these things right here. But I think this right here is really, kind of dealing with how we should view ourselves. And I think the better we're able to, the more righteous we're able to view ourselves, the more godly we're able to view ourselves, I think the more we'll be able to line up with the way that Christ, the way that he views us. If we sell ourselves short, I think we're missing we're missing his opinion of us, you know, his perspective of us. And so he goes on saying, you know, giving thanks unto the Father which has made us meet to be partakers. I mean, we actually have the, you know, it's another scripture about meat for the master's use. I mean, he's made us ready, you know, ready to be partakers of his inheritance. But specifically for the ones who walk in the light. It says, who have delivered us from the power of darkness and have translated us into the kingdom of his dear Son. And so he's talking about, he's going through this whole thing saying that you know what, we are in position. God is literally, you know, he's changed his view of us, and we're, I don't want us to say deserving, because I don't want us to lose focus. We're not deserving because of our past, but we're deserving because of what God has done with our lives to be partakers of his inheritance. But specifically the saints that walk in the light. And then he goes on and says, who have delivered us from the power of darkness. I want to know, what does that mean? That God delivered us. What is the power of darkness? Huh? Sin is the power of darkness? Satan is the power of darkness? Huh? Deception is the power of darkness?
My book says darkness is a religious state in which unbelievers exist.
A religious state in which unbelievers exist? Alright. Alright.
Spiritual ignorance.
Spiritual ignorance, yeah, ma'am. Okay.
The New Living Translation said he has rescued us from the one who rules in the kingdom of darkness.
Rescued us from the one who rules in the kingdom of darkness. I think everything that y'all saying is accurate. I think the key part is that we have to believe that he has delivered us from him, from the power of darkness, from the power of being able to be controlled by Satan. When Satan controls us, we end up doing what? We end up sinning. When we're under Satan's control, all right, we end up out of the will of God. And so every time we sin, we just got to be honest with ourselves and say that I allow Satan to control my act. I allow him to control my action. And so, but if he delivered us from that, my question then is, why do we accept that this is something we're going to keep doing if we are delivered from it? That's my question. Deliverance means, to me, deliverance.
That you've been freed.
Yeah, you've been freed from it.
But God gives us that choice, that sense of choice.
Choice to be delivered or not?
Choice to sin or not. And that we have that choice all the time. If not, we would be little robots that would just always be little perfect angels.
But I think we have to take that word choice. I think that word choice is politically correct. It's nice. It's not too harsh. It's easy. I think that we have to take that word choice and be real honest about that word choice. And so all wrapped up in that word choice, when I choose to do what's righteous, I'm being controlled by the Holy Spirit. When I choose to do what's unrighteous, I'm being controlled by Satan. I have a choice to who I will allow to control my life. But because in reality we are robots when we make the right choice or when we make the wrong choice. When the Bible says that Christians, that we're supposed to be slaves to what? Righteousness. Righteousness. And so a slave is told what to do, when to do, how to do. They're a slave to righteousness. And so as believers, we have to do what's righteous. As a sinner, I'm a child of the devil, the scripture says. I'm a child of Satan. And so I still have somebody controlling me. All I did was just chose who was going to control me. But in the end, somebody is still controlling me. Either I'm a child of God or I'm a child of Satan. And so I think that word choice is real. It's very appropriate. But I think that we have to understand that we have the choice to choose who will control us. Whether God will control us or whether we will allow the enemy to control us. We have a choice to make that. But in the end, somebody's still controlling. You know, it's like you know, you're in a situation where you feel like, you know, you the boss, but in reality you just chose who would, like in my house, all right? I'm the man. I'm the head of the household. Amen. But I want you to stay with that amen now. I'm the head of the household. But there you go. But so all out, I choose. I'm the boss now. I just choose to let her run everything.
Yes, man.
Yeah. And so, yes, I chose to let that woman control everything. All right? And so I can walk around here saying it was my choice, but my choice or not, when she tells me to do something, I'm the boss, but guess what I'm doing? I'm doing what the person that I chose to gain that kind of authority over me to do. And so when it comes to when you hit that cool button on the And so in reality, even though we have choice, we have a choice to choose our boss. We have choice to choose who's going to be in control of it. But we got to be realistic and understand we're never in control. Paul said, when I want to do good, evil is right there. You know, and so we got to check. Because even not going anywhere, you can go you can go live in a monastery. You know, you can go off wherever. Evil is going to be right there with you. You can go in the prayer room and spend your whole day. Anybody ever been to the prayer room right now? Yeah. It's beautiful, beautiful prayer room. You can go in that prayer room and spend all day. Guess what? Satan's going to be sitting. You might not get a chance to talk. You know, you might have the kind of control over him the way he don't get a chance to talk. He don't have to get a chance to express his opinions. But he's just sitting right there, just waiting for an opportunity.
As soon as you get out that door,
yeah. He ain't got to wait till you get out that door. He's sitting right by that little chair. He's sitting right there in the corner, just waiting for your mind to straight. Just waiting for something. Evil is always present, but we have a choice in who we will allow to control our actions. And so here, he said that God delivered us from the power of the negative control. The negative power, which is Satan. He delivered us from that. And so if he delivered us from that, why do we just so easily say that? It's like, anybody ever had a family member that's been addicted to anything? Drugs, alcohol? Yeah. Anybody ever been addicted to a family member? I see it every day. But a person might have used to be, they might have been an addict, but if they keep going back and doing it, to me they still got the problem.
It's other things as well.
Huh?
It's not just drugs that has addiction.
I'm saying addict. Addict is anything you're addicted to.
I think some of them get it twisted.
Yeah. Addict is anything you're addicted to.
Yeah.
And so if you keep going back, you might not go back as much as you used to go back.
Yeah.
tell yourself, this is bad for me, I don't want to do it, and then every now and then you keep finding yourself doing it, I'm wondering if you're delivered.
I have a question. Oh, you want to answer that one?
You might answer right now. Is it dealing with that?
No, I don't know.
Let me ponder this. Write that down. Let me ponder this. If you have a problem with pornography, all our older people are like, ooh.
No, I don't have a problem.
Y'all in there, so y'all know. If you have a problem with pornography, and then you say, God, please deliver this from me. Something happens, you hear a sermon, or you hear a teaching, and you get convicted. Because you convince yourself, well, I'm single or married, and it's not like I'm actually touching somebody. But then God ministers to you and says, no, it's lust. It's not right, it's lust. And then so you say, okay, God, take this from me. But then every now and then you go back and partake in the pornography. My question is, yeah, you might not be looking at it every day, but you go back and look at it once every 2 or 3 weeks. My question, are you really delivered? Is there a partial deliverance? I mean, it might be. Y'all teach me. Huh? Why you say that? Why you say there's no partial deliverance?
It's like, it's like partial Christian. Ain't no partial nothing. It's either all or nothing.
All or nothing.
It's either all or nothing.
You
Ain't
can't
no
be a
partial.
little bit pregnant.
That's what I was going to say.
Ain't no partial.
So if you keep going back and doing it, are you really delivered?
No.
And I think what they're showing us in here, maybe you're not delivered because you're not speaking deliverance. You're accepting a compromised worldview of what God has done with you instead of speaking a supernatural thing that God has done to you. It was a guy that preached on Sunday, I can't remember the name, but didn't he say, if any man be in Christ? How can you be new and be old? You can't be new and old, can you? I tell you, can you be new and old?
Nah, but
Come on, talk to me.
no, it was up. It don't have nothing to do with what we're talking about.
So you line yours up behind me again. But you know what? I might want to see where your mind was
No,
going.
I was thinking about how people try to make old stuff new. Like you go to a consignment shop and somebody just sold you some old clothes. That don't mean they new to you.
They new to you, but they still old clothes.
They still old clothes. Somebody else still that bought that and wore that just because you bought it again. Don't make it new clothes. That's the mindset we have sometimes.
It's still an old outfit. It's just new to you. And so the way you living, this Christianity thing might be new to you, but you living like, I mean, you're not living like a Christian. You done picked up some old clothes that should have been left alone.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see this thing. It's new to, this thing new to you, but you're still living like you used to.
And you can't tweak your old ways and call them new.
There you go. And you got to be fully transformed. Is that why, man?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Based on where you come from deliverance, 2 Peter 2:9 says, "Then the Lord knows how to deliver the godly out of temptation and to reserve the unjust under punishment for the day of judgment."
You say 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 9. All right? And so you said, the Lord knoweth how to deliver the godly out of temptation and to reserve the unjust until the day of judgment to be punished. And so in that right there, you're saying that God knows how to deliver us. But I think we have to be willing to accept it or be delivered. I think that's the issue, not whether God can deliver, but I think, are we willing to be delivered? That's it. And then not only to be delivered, but that's why Anybody know Booker T. Washington? Y'all know him? I really like Booker T. Washington. A lot of people don't like him. No, we black. We went to school together. Yeah, the same. Who you got? I'm gonna tell you why. Like, anybody ever heard of Atlanta compromise speech? Y'all heard it? Randy, you want to tell us about the Atlanta compromise speech?
Yeah, Booker T spoke in the early 1900s or late 1800s, and he said that we could be, speaking of blacks, we could be separate like the hand, well, separate like the fingers, but united like the hand. He was talking about the relationship between black and white. And his whole argument was that black people didn't need to depend on white people. We just need to make ourselves so good that we would be, they couldn't do without us. They would need us to do things. We would build the best homes. We would be the best welder. We would be the best at everything. So that was his whole speech. But we didn't need to try to sit in the theaters with them. We didn't need to try to go to the same school. We could just be so good, they would need us.
Yeah. And his statement was, drop your buckets right where you are. And the whole idea is, he had a good realization of the potential, the capability of a group of people that were getting caught up in blaming somebody else for their conditions. And somebody else might have had something to do with your condition, but if you stay in that condition, you can't keep blaming somebody else. You got to look in the mirror. And so a lot of people didn't like that. Didn't like his approach. You know, the fact that first of all, because a lot of people are saying, let's go back to Africa. Go back to Africa. You're like, right where you are, make it happen here. Stop acting like you gotta make all these adjustments, make all these changes to be successful. Do it right where you are. Use your own ingenuity. Like Randy said, be the best at it, be the best at it. You're the best. Whether folk like you or not, they gonna call on you if you're the best. And so I think as Christians, I think that we gotta have that mindset of stop looking for something to blame. Stop looking that the devil did this, the devil did that. But what did God do? Did he deliver you? And if he delivered you, why you keep blaming something else? If God delivered you, walk in your deliverance and stop making excuses to walk in darkness. I don't think it's acceptable. I think he delivered us for a reason.
But that's the bottom line. The whole purpose of the whole thing, as far as Jesus Christ to me is concerned, that was my mark and what I had to understand when I was told that I was stupid, I was this, that, and the other. My grandmother instilled in me the God sent child. That's what you see here, and you have to understand that. You can't stand still. You can't stay in the back. What happened 20 years ago, you can't lay back there because the slavery was here.
Okay.
You have to elevate your mind and look at me and you do it through Jesus.
So that same elevation as it relates to social justice,
That's right.
we have to do that same elevation as it relates to spiritual issues. And so the sins that I used to do before I was delivered, cursing, envy, strife, hatred, gossiping, the sins that I used to do before I was delivered, the same way I elevated my game as it relates to social justice, I have to elevate my game as it relates to spiritual matters and stop making excuses to sin.
And you can't justify.
You can't justify. Either you deliver or you're not delivered. And if you're not delivered, it's not because God was not able to deliver you. It's because we did not allow God to deliver us. And so I think he's trying to get us to speak speak with your mouth deliverance. But a lot of times, because of pride, we won't speak deliverance because what if I fall? Then I'm going to be embarrassed. Pride comes just before destruction. Speak that you're going to win. Speak that you're going to win. Speak that you're going to win. And just by chance you happen to fall short, access the grace of God, get back up, dust yourself off, and speak like you're going to win. And speak like you're going to win. And I think that's where Satan gets us. He takes the power that we have in our words. He takes it away from us because of failures. And we have to learn to get beyond our failures and speak like we're going to, after a while, the words that we speak, we're going to become. We speak that we're going to keep falling short, we're going to fall short. If we speak that we're going to keep pleasing God and that God is in full control, you have to walk a little bit slower when God is in control. You can't make decisions so fast. You got to get in the habit of just moving slow and making sure you hear from God. That don't work in this world too much because we're in such a fast-paced society. They want you to make decisions just like that. And so you have to be willing to miss opportunities. Say, well, if you don't decide now, well, I'm sorry, I can't decide now. I got to talk to God. And so if it's, I'll let you know when God finishes. If it's still there, I'll be back. If it's not there, God bless the option that you think I missed.
Okay, I had to skip my first question.
I want to hear.
No, I come back. It was
Okay.
about atheist.
Okay.
But then my second one was, after Randy said what he said, and I was thinking, after slavery, all the artisans, all the craftsmen, the bricklayers, were all former slaves. They even built the White House. Then what happened to us? You understand what I'm saying? From that point, because they were the workmen in America.
Mark said they never went and got a license.
No.
Is that what you just said?
Well, Mark said we were the ones who built all that. But then they changed the game and said you need a license in order to continue building it after they learned from us what it was.
So why you get a license?
Pardon?
Why do you get a license?
Because we couldn't read.
Oh, you could.
So they learned the skills from us as we built the stuff.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then they flipped the script once they had the knowledge of building and said, now you need a license, and we couldn't read. That's what happened. That's the situation.
How you know you can read? How you know you can read? You tell Booker T why you can read?
I didn't say Booker T. White, but
You said they
Frederick
could read.
Douglass taught himself how to read.
Math.
We're talking about the majority of black slaves were not even allowed to read. So no, they could not read.
Because they weren't allowed to, they couldn't?
I didn't say that.
What you just said?
I said the majority. Frederick Douglass taught himself to read. After he learned a little bit, somebody had to teach him.
You dropped the facts, and so I'm
That's
back
not
on
my
my facts.
question. Is it my question yet?
You jumped in there. Next time we don't want to deal with it. So the answer was not that they didn't have a license.
What was the answer?
It wasn't no answer. Somebody just threw an answer out there, but they ain't backing up. All right? They ain't backing up. And so, ask your question again. We'll get somebody that will back the answer.
Into what Randy said. I'm
Okay.
trying to tie that in.
Okay?
When they were free, all the artisans were former slaves. They did everything. They knew how to do everything. But we had a period of time, all that disappeared, and here we are today. What happened?
I don't have all those answers,
Yeah.
but spiritually,
Yeah, that's the answer I want.
spiritually, I want to tell you that I think that bad doctrine is destroying the body of Christ. I think there's a strong spirit of mediocrity that does not, and then I think you might even be able to line it up on the physical side. But I think there's a bad air of mediocrity that flows through the body of Christ. If Jesus said that all power has been given to me in heaven and in earth, and he says even greater works will you do, why would the body of Christ walk in anything but absolute power of God? Why would we accept anything but the idea that God is able to do exactly what he said to do, and first of all, is to make me a new creature, transform my life. And I think if you can take that confession out of our mouths, I think if you can get me to start babbling and bumbling when folk are pondering or we're talking about my ability to live a righteous life, and you can get me to start making excuses why I can't do it, I think you strip my power away. You know, my power is in me saying that, yes, I can do it. If God said I can. And then so I think if you relate it to the physical side, I think that same ability has been stripped away. I think that a lot of our younger people don't even, I'm going to tell you one thing, that why I can't wait for like 3 years to pass by once we've had a good flow in the St. Paul School of Excellence. Now St. Paul School of Excellence is going to be a diverse school, going to be diverse as far as ethnicity, going to be diverse as far as the type of background, you know, whether it's middle class or slow social. We're hoping that it'll be diverse in all those areas. But what I'm excited about is that right here, I think that we accept the fact that it's okay for black students to perform 30% lower, have a proficiency level 30% lower than the rest of the students. We think that's okay. That's fine. That's fine. I think it's okay. At least I'm a part of something great. To me, that is absolutely not acceptable. But I think that people accept things like that, and then they just go right on, just mosey on along, scoring 30%, 26 to 30% lower than the average student, and nothing's wrong with that. Nothing's wrong. We don't see a need to address that right there. Everything is wrong with that. But if you can get people to think that it's acceptable, and then people will stop trying. If the bar is here, and you said in so many cases that, well, it's okay if you perform here. That's okay. It's okay that you perform here. And what we'll do is when it's time to rate you, we'll just lower the bar for you. We'll just lower the bar for you. And in so many cases, I think that things that were probably meant to be good, a mediocre mind took them and let them work against us and make them bad. Say affirmative action, supposed to be a good thing, right? It's only a good thing if I can compete with the people that I'm getting a job over. It's not a good thing if they got to lower the bar for me. All right? Now please understand, I'm not placing all this weight on the SAT or ACT. I'm not saying that because there's some factors to where there's some factors that play a role in that. And so I understand that some of the things that they require, that somebody might require, they might already kind of be unbalanced. But I think in your mindset, you can't go into the game saying that, well, I'm not going to have to compete as high as someone else to get the same opportunity. And I think when you lower yourself to that thinking, I think you put yourself in a position to where you'll lag behind and you'll not be what your Creator planned on you being. And then so spiritually in the same mindset, I think that we've been tricked spiritually into thinking that, you know what, God is fine. I know that He says that I should be here, but in reality, He's fine with me here. I think He's fine with me here, and He'll just give grace and just keep lowering the bar for me. And I think that we don't shoot for the righteousness that God has delivered us to be able to live in. And so I think that has a lot. I'm not going to say that's the answer, but I think mediocre teaching and doctrine has played a strong role in us not just demanding that we be better spiritually, stronger spiritually. I see some hands tied, and then Mark.
Now, I would think we're going to make two comments. I mean, with the spiritual side, we talked about that before, that folks are willing, or people are willing to accept mediocrity in the church in order to grow their churches. But at the end, you know, a couple years down the road, maybe 2 years down the road, you know, they washing away, they're disrupting. Because they're, you know, the head or who's in charge was willing to accept the mediocre things that were going on in the church. So, you know, we talked about that, and then as far as, okay, now, you know, you look at, you're saying, look at that, you see that church that's growing. I mean, they big choir, that's why they got so many members. Then 3-4 years later, they down bad, they destructed. Their members they're down bad. And so I think that's what you're talking about spiritually. That's one of that's to me, I think that is one of the main downfalls. Because we got folks that are willing to accept that just so I can have a bigger church, or I can have a best choir, I can have this, or I can have that, because we're willing to accept it. And then, you know, the second thing I was going to just when you were talking about us low understanding, and you know, and if we low understanding, and we think, okay, oh, that's cool, but just like now let's do it to 2.5. Now they're low understanding down to 2.0. And just being real about it, they're not low understanding for other folk in order for us. And we're still, and now we got more that are front out of school.
Let me hit you right there in the corner. And so why would a parent allow their child to play a sport with a 2.0? Even if the school says it's fine, why would the parent allow the child to spend all that time in the sport when apparently they need to spend more time in the books? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, that's the mindset, and I think that really that mindset, oh, that's okay, as long as they're playing sport, as long as they can. I was at a seminar, as long as I can put my baby jersey on, and I'm running around, I'm hollering, hey, go number 5, go whatever number he is.
And then they're going to be able to put his number on when they turn 18 too.
Yeah.
It's going to say DC 14523.
You're right. So I just, you know, I was just making a point to the point that it's like on both sides, spiritual and in the world, you see it every day, and we still accepting that. And then now, okay, now you're going to a 2.0. A 2.0, okay, if you maintain a 2.0, it can't get you to college. You can't go nowhere. And we're stuck, and then we just wind up looking around like I say, and you know, that needs some middle.
Shoot below. Yes, sir.
Deliverance is a moment in which something occurs. And when this deliverance occurs, then God, who knows everything, is gracious enough to cast your past into forgetfulness and looks upon you as a new creature. I heard someone say here just now that choice. So, deliverance is a moment. God looks at you as new. Now, are you going to continue to look at yourself as such? Is what the key fact is. In 1 Peter 1 verse 13 through 16, it says, wherefore gird up the loins of your mind, be sober, and hope to the end of the grace that is to be brought unto you at the revelation of Jesus Christ, as obedient children, not fashioning yourselves according to the former lust of your ignorance, but as he which has called you is holy, so be ye holy in all manners of conversation, because it is written, be ye holy, for I am holy. And so I think that God, as he looks upon you as a new creature, you have to look upon yourself, and the situation is laid out that you can maintain that, but you have to choose it. So the word choice, I think Ms. Judith used, is appropriate because, like you said, if we are robots, in fact, slave to something. So the choice is, am I going to be a good robot or am I going to be a bad robot? So I think choice is right there. And even when we falter a little, because Paul said, you know, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. So we have to continue to kill our flesh and continue to choose to kill our flesh in order that the spirit might abound. And the more the flesh dies, and the greater the habitation for the spirit, the greater the vessel of habitation that the spirit can live in.
All right, good. Yes, I see a hand right there. Who's that in the back? Alma Milton.
I was going to just comment on something that is sort of probably against what Mark said about deliverance is a moment. I would prefer to think that deliverance is not a moment. Deliverance is a state. If it's a moment, then I'm more likely to say, well, I was delivered last week, but temptation is strong today, and I don't think I can stand it. Or if my mind says that I am delivered, not in a moment, I am delivered as a state of being, then I think that gives us more strength to continue, to persevere, as opposed to just thinking it's something that happens.
We walk in deliverance.
Yes.
Choose to stay there.
How do you view atheists and their choices?
Same way I view our choices. We chose to believe what we believe in. They chose to believe that they believe in something. They choose to believe. We choose to believe in God. They make a choice not to believe in God. If God didn't exist, why would they even make a choice not to believe in Him? I mean, they make a choice. I don't make a choice when all right, Jackie Bryan, she got this fancy car. All right? And so when you get in her car, she makes a choice. She can either turn the ignition or she can just push a button. Because she got that option. When I get in my 2003 minivan, I don't sit there and say, well, I won't push the button today. I just get in there and turn the key. Because that's not a choice. That's not real for me in my car. You see what I'm saying? So where the atheist is concerned, why are you even choosing not to believe in? If that don't matter, it just don't matter. You're making a choice, you're making a conscious choice not to believe in something that should not even exist to you. Y'all can talk about buttons all you want when you get in my van, but I'm not going to talk to you about buttons because I have no buttons to push to start a car in my van. That's not a choice in my mind. And so they make a choice. We choose to believe in Christ. They make a choice to not believe in Christ. You see what I'm saying? And so it's all about, back what Judy's saying, all about choices, but we're slave to something. Yes, sir.
All right, we were talking today in the noonday prayer, and Sister Alice made the statement that there are folk who continually, although they're Christians, continually relive situations that they were, at the moment, delivered from. Now, and that's, you know, the Bible says that there are things that you have to lay down and set aside. God is like an incubator who makes the condition perfect for you to exist if you choose to live there.
I mean, I think you spoke and you said they were delivered for at that moment, so the next moment I guess they wouldn't deliver.
No, it's not the moment that they were, once you're delivered, but if you choose to lay down your deliverance.
Is deliverance a moment or a process?
It's not a moment. So we're talking about a choice of living in what you have been delivered from, or choosing to go back and pick it up.
And so your conversation was
The fact that these people continually, you know, on Sunday, I'm paraphrasing now, she didn't say this. On Sunday, they're in a state of grace, and on Tuesday, they're not. Because they continue to relive.
if by chance the recollections that you all were having were true, my question is, were they delivered?
At the moment.
I would say, again, that deliverance comes at the moment.
And so you were delivered.
There is a perfect storm of things that come together, and this is just a thought that allows this process to happen. Salvation, you have to confess and believe. So now you have been, or you feel delivered from this situation, from this addiction.
I think if you're dealing with moments, you probably are going to deal with feelings. But I think with deliverance, you have to believe that something happened.
So
because I'm going to be honest with you now, when I was delivered, I didn't necessarily feel nothing. But I just knew I gave my life to Christ. And then as I began to live this life that I gave to Christ, I began to realize that, wow, it's different. Look at that next verse when he says, who have delivered us from the power of darkness and have translated us into the kingdom of his dear Son. See, I think that's what deliverance does. Deliverance takes you from where you were to where God wants you to be. And so if you're still where you were, my question is, were you delivered? You can't be delivered without being translated. Deliverance translates you. And so maybe you did just have a moment of feeling. But I don't know if we want to call it deliverance.
So once you've been translated, isn't there something that you have to do to maintain and stay there?
Yes.
That's what we're talking about, because you can
choose. The question you said, stay. Translation. If I have something that I don't understand, I give it to Sean, and Sean translates it for me. He makes it plain for me. He puts it so I can understand. To translate, what God does is he shows us who we really are. I was not who he intended on me being. But when he translates it, and takes me to where I was living below where I was created. And I was fearfully and wonderfully made. I was created, but I was living in a way that did not line up with the way God created me. But then once he translated me, now I see exactly who I am. And so now even doing those old things don't make sense because I have a clear understanding of who I am. And I think that once we have a clear understanding of who we are, we don't even reach back to go back and be that old thing that we used to be. But by chance we happen to, always say grace, give grace an opportunity to play a role. But in my thinking, translation is, I don't even see me the way I used to see me. You don't even see yourself the way you used to see yourself. And because now you see yourself different, now you're not so apt to do the things you used to do. You've been translated. You didn't understand who you were. What the scriptures were saying you were and where you were, it was a foreign language. You couldn't see yourself there. But when God delivered you, he translated you and put you in a place to where, you know what? I am the head and not the tail. I am fearfully and I understand why I was doing what I was doing, because that's not me. You know, things just start making sense. I understand me now. And I think that until God translates us, I think a lot of us keep doing old stuff because we don't understand what God has intended and is willing to do in us. But once we're willing to see that, we got to see it. And once I can see it, I can speak it now. I can speak it now because I see myself. I might not have it yet. I might not be there yet, but I see myself. By faith, I see myself there. That's the translation right there. I was an old creature. The man asked me, say, well, how can a man be born again? Do I have to go again into my mother's womb? Well, you don't understand. This thing is supernatural. This thing is spiritual. It ain't got nothing to do with that water. You were born. He said, this thing is about to happen. You about to be born of the Spirit. And so I think that we have to actually know, but it can't be a feeling. Can't be a feeling. If we live a Christian life based on feeling, your life ain't gonna last too long. It's not your Christian life. It's not gonna last too long. Feelings are just that. They're emotions. The Greek word for that kind of love is called phileo. Phileo. It's a love based on emotions. All right. If your love based on emotions, they're gonna change with the wind. All right. But I think that we have to understand that we have to see this word. And we have to see ourselves in this word. If this is who God says that, if God says that I'm holy because He's holy, guess what? I'm holy. I don't care what you say. I'm holy. That's what I am. You're not gonna make me say anything. I am holy. Like it or not, I don't care what you know I used to do. I am holy because God is holy. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I can do all things through Christ Jesus. I am the head and not the tail. I flee fornication. And you speak what God says about your life. You believe what God says about your life. Now it's been translated to me. Now I understand. I'm out of this old slave mentality. Now I understand exactly who I am. Okay.
I'm there. But 13 of Peter 1, 1 Peter, wherefore gird up the loins of your mind. Gird is meaning strengthen. Stay prepared. Does not, so we have to continue to.
What needs to stay prepared?
Your mind.
That's how I see myself. That's how I perceive myself. It's been translated. The mind is where understanding comes from. And all I get understanding. It's been translated. I see me for who I am now. That's why the loins of my mind are girded up. And you know what loins do for men and women? For men, that's what men produce from the loins. When my mind is right, I'm a productive Christian. So you're right. But it's in the mind. I have to see myself. I have to have this thing. I have to be able to now translate who God says that I am. It's not just words in a book anymore. It's not a strange thing. This is who I am. Yes, ma'am.
You have to renew your mind daily. Because it's a daily walk.
That's exactly right. And one reason why you got to renew it daily is because we don't know everything today. There's so much more for us to learn about who God is. The depths are so much deeper about what God says we are. And so right now we're looking through a glass darkly. You know, we don't even see it as deep as we are. We still don't see how powerful we are in God. Every day we open ourselves up for God to say, you know what? You ain't even cracked the surface yet. I got some places I want to take you. That's why you renew your mind. Because if you leave your mind in that state that is there, 10 years, you're still going to be celebrating where you was today in 10 years spiritually. When God says if you renew it daily, I can take you higher and higher and higher, and I can take you deeper and deeper and deeper. And so that's where the renewing don't necessarily come because I done messed it up the day before and now I'm just bringing it back to where it was. It comes to the fact that I'm taking this thing to a whole different level now, a new way of thinking and a new way of thinking and a new, from revelation to revelation, from faith to faith.
Well, that's why people have a problem when you said you're free. The freedom part. Back to the original question. So
why people have a problem with retreat, because they don't renew their mind daily as they've been delivered. And then the word of God, and they get more in depth and more in depth into the word of God.
And so they don't walk in the freedom. They don't walk in the liberty.
That's right.
Big.
Would you think deliverance makes you more conscious of your sin?
I think deliverance, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I think deliverance just makes everything, I understand. When I'm delivered, when you cuss me out, I don't have to cuss back at you because I understand that I'm not wrestling against flesh and blood. You know, when I'm delivered, things just make sense to me now. And so I don't take it wrong and respond the wrong way. It's translated to me. It's all in a language that I understand now. Right? A lot of times we fall in and fall into the hands of the wrong puppet master because we're not delivered. And so we see something happen and we don't understand why it happened. You know, we see a temptation might come and we don't understand why that trial came. You know, we don't understand that. There have been some folk. Did Donna Cornelius shoot herself today?
Yes, he did.
Shot herself. Donna Cornelius. Shot himself today. If you can see what God sees, there's no way in the world you would lose that much hope. The way you would put a gun to your head, the enemy has clouded your mind for a second and made you not see what God sees. And so, but deliverance allows us to see that it's not as bad as it appears, and actually it's going to work to my good.
Hallelujah.
Yes, ma'am.
I think a lot of what we're discussing goes back to Miss Green's question about where did the artisans and stuff, where did they go? When a lot of us left slavery, we were only known by the work of our hands. And so Booker T started Tuskegee and was teaching people how to use their hands and but somewhere there was a shift to where we started recognizing that our minds were just as good as our hands. And a lot of people started going off to school to learn and to use what God had given them up here instead of just what. So I don't necessarily think that they're all lost. Some just have chosen to use perfect different gifts that God gives.
And so you're saying maybe they just haven't found their place in this new existence, this new world.
Yeah.
And so what they have is still valuable, but they got to understand how to apply what they have in this new existence. Is that what you're saying? And so I'm gonna take it spiritual. And so if I look at this spiritual, and let's see, here's a real good one right here. Let's say old school church. Old school church. Folk went down to got on that mourner's bench, they knelt, they prayed, they tarried, they did all these things, but now say you in a different world that don't necessarily even acknowledge those things. And Carlton Pearson sang a song one time, and I know his theology went off, so I'm not lifting up his theology, but just a song he sang one time. He said he had asked his somebody, sister, brother, said that when they was making a song, he was making an album, and somebody told him to make one on there that his daddy can relate to, because they got all these new songs out, and put one on there that your daddy can relate to, and he put one of them old songs that his daddy can relate to, and because I think sometimes even as it relates to the body of Christ, you see things changing, things going way out there. And some people got to be sitting by that come from the old school church, got to be like, what in the world is going on? You know, what are they doing? And can almost be misled to think that what they brought to the table, the way that they did it, that now some kind of way that don't work anymore. That's not useful anymore. And it reminds me of the old wine skins and the new wine skins. And the idea was that you don't destroy any of it. You know, you don't lose anything, but you have to be careful when you put the new wine into the old wine skin, because it's gonna burst. But it never said throw the old wine skins away. You got to figure out a way to make all of this useful. And I think the church could do real well in trying to make sure that how do we make all of this work together. Now, I understand all of our new revelation, all of the new stuff we got. It don't invalidate what got us to this point. You know, yeah, Mama prayed different. Yeah, they said some things. Yeah, the songs was different. Yeah, but come on now, your Holy Ghost ain't like your Holy Ghost better. You know, you just doing it in a different way. You know, and we will have some folk that will act like, you know, like these old songs don't mean anything. You know that that ain't God. Just slow down now. Slow down now. That was the God that when you was in your mess, that was dealing with that woman that prayed you out your mess. And so don't invalidate, you know, and so I think how do I use the skills that were valuable during my prime? How do I use these skills in a new age? And I think that but if I can be convinced that what I bring to the table is not valuable anymore, and then I think you're going to have a big drop off and a big gap, a whole bunch of, you're going to have a lack of teaching, because those same people that go get that education, now when I was in Florida, I got a whole bunch of sense from books, but to actually go and, you know, I got a whole bunch of sense about how you do it, but it ain't always as easy as the book make it seem. And you sit, my best teaching as a pastor came from he was at that time about 95-year-old great-granddaddy sitting on the porch listening to him talking. More than I learned in any seminary, learned the University of Florida religion, learned more than any board of examiners. It came from that man. He ain't never used a projector screen. He never had an iPad. You know, he didn't have all this stuff right here. All this stuff, he had a Bible. All right, and he worked that Bible. He made that Bible make sense. But more than anything else, he lived that Bible. Everything that he understand you were supposed to do out that Bible, that's what he did. All right, and so I got that's where my foundation comes from, that man right there. And he didn't have no doctorate degree. He didn't have no stripes on his robe. He didn't have all that kind of stuff right there. But he knew how to put what I needed inside of me. And so I think we do have to value, it took that effort, a whole bunch of brains and no ability to really actually do it with your hands, not going to get you anywhere either. How do we work this whole thing together? How do we make the body of Christ all that it is and utilize the whole body of Christ? You know, how do we do that? I think that's what we have to do. We have to work this whole thing together. And so some folk might not ever jump on some of this other stuff. And so I got to still make sure that I can still, you know, I got to be able to minister to them, you know. And I think we have to work it together. But I think that we have to, out of our mouth, I think that's one thing that does not change is righteousness, you know. And we can't redefine righteousness. Righteousness is righteousness, point blank. Now, some people add a whole bunch of other stuff to righteousness. You know, like your skirt got to come down to your ankles and stuff like that. I don't know that scripture. All right. And so we got to make sure righteousness is defined in that book, and then we apply righteousness, and then whatever our little doctrine is, we work it how we want to work it. But we apply righteousness because God says that we're righteous.
Reverend Rose, we also have an obligation that those of us still in the church, we have to maintain our heritage. Let people know what we're about. I mean, we don't just can't throw out everything. The day we were practicing in the sanctuary, and the children were sitting on the altar, and I told them, oh no, you never sit on the altar. And they wanted to know why they couldn't sit on the little seat, just to be playing around. So there are many, many times and many, many things you just need to teach. You're not going to tell them to know it.
They just teach you, but if they sat on the altar, they're not going to go to hell.
No, but I just
no, I'm saying that's important.
Oh, yeah.
But I think what we have to understand, yes, we want to make sure that we have order, that we understand we know the difference between the sacred and the secular, that we respect the things of God, but we don't give. We got to make a clear distinction between God's what we're obligated. I'm really not obligated to anything other than His Word. But because of my love for my church, I respect the history of my church. And if I ever chose that I didn't want to respect the history of my beloved AME church, and then I would go and pastor somewhere else, I wouldn't try to change my beloved AME church to not be AME anymore. That we're flexible, and when you say be AME, some people take that too far, and they think this AME right here, this little box right here. No, you better go back and read that discipline. It's bigger than that little box. It gives flexibility in worship. It gives flexibility. It gives a whole lot of flexibility to move with the Holy Ghost. But sometimes we look at how we done defined it. You know, when I started going to churches, and I think y'all was pretty good, or maybe y'all said under your breath, I don't know. But I think y'all was. But when I go in and change them call to worships and pull out them extra offerings and all that kind of stuff right there, but they're like, what you doing? What you doing? But I need them to understand this thing is just because y'all done did it like this, right? Y'all not gonna box me in the way I don't have, throwing that praise and worship up front. What you doing? You're supposed to start with the doxology. What's up with the praise and worship? You don't box God in. You do what God says. So don't let your little stuff box God in, but in respect though, you still respect your structure, but you don't limit yourself because you misunderstand your structure.
My husband used to call me an orthodox linguist.
But you gotta have some. You gotta have some. Because there's some
notorious.
You gotta have some, because some of my brothers just go a little bit too far. But and so you gotta have some.
I would go too far. I would go too far.
I'm saying you go too far to the right. You go too far to the right. But some people go too far to the left. And so that's fine. But
it's necessary to stay grounded the whole way.
You gotta work this thing together. I gotta
Can I suggest something?
And I gotta understand, I ain't never seen Brother Color take off and shout, run around the church. And I don't even know if Gene know how to spell shout. But in no way do I think that I am any more holy than Brother Color or Gene. And that's what we have to change. We have to change that just because people don't do it like I do it, there's some kind of way it make me be. There might be times I might say, come on, let's praise the Lord. Okay, but just because you're not this outright praiser, that don't mean that you ain't praising just as deep as I am. Just as a leader, I'm trying to say, let's go. And sometimes I say, do what you want to do. All right? But how you want to do it sometimes, because you know when they walk around the walls of Jericho, okay, there was a point where he said, I need for all of us to do this specific thing. Even if you ain't used to doing it, right now, we need to do it this way to get what God, get the result. And so let's just go ahead and do it this way. When the wall come down, you go back to doing the way you used to do it. And so you don't devalue the way people do what they do. And that's between them and God. But there will be times when I tell y'all, hey, let's go shop this thing down now. You can go back to whatever you do. But so I think we really have to be respectful. But just ourselves, the whole gist of this study, we have to see our lives as translated by God. Whatever God says in that scripture, we have to see God delivering us from where we used to be, which they did not line up with those scriptures, to translate it to a place to where it does line up with those scriptures.